gearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network. You're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast on the Gear Radio Network.
And with that, we welcome you to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This here, episode 185.
Episode 185. We are 15 away from 200, BLTD 200, and I'm hoping, Ryan, that will be a magnificent podcast.
I mean, I'm really hoping so. You know, at this point in time, we've got the next three podcasts, including this one, as being the first of three, as you will see here shortly. It's kind of a already planned out, already written, already ready to go. But this here is the AFC Previewcast. It is mid-August right now. And before we get started, this episode is brought to you by puckluck.com, your one-stop resource for all of your National Hockey League sports betting action. Puckluck.com provides win percentages and score projections for each and every NHL game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? Not to worry. Puckluck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, puckluck.com is in no way affiliated with the National Hockey League, its teams, or the NHLPA. Puckluck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. I am Ryan Wolfe. You can find me somewhere on the internet. John got me onto Threads. I don't know what my name is there, but I think it's the same as my Instagram handle. But
yeah, it's the same. It would be the same as your Instagram handle. So whatever your Instagram is,
there you go.
That's your Threads handle.
Yeah, hit me there. You can also find John, who is joining me right now live. You can find him on Threads as well.
Threads.
I mean,
I am JC Money.
I'm still on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now, but I have not tweeted in many weeks.
Yeah, I deleted my personal Twitter account a while ago. I don't use it anymore. I know my podcast, my JC Money show, and also the Gear Network Twitter is still there, but those are pretty much just sitting there idle. I've
had to search through the internet to find news again, but that's fine.
No, I mean, I'll still click on like Twitter if links are sent through. I can still see those.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, I don't engage on there anymore. I'm exclusively on Threads as far as, you know, to the minute kind of engagement, like during wrestling pay-per-views or premium live events, whatever it's called now. Or during sporting events, I'll always be on Threads utilizing that. So if you want to follow me in my events and shenanigans during sports and or entertainment or sports entertainment, at I am JC Money on Threads, my friends.
That's absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm.
As always, you can hear us on betterlivethandead.com, gearnetwork.com, and wherever you listen to podcasts. John, training camp's underway, preseason's underway. The NFL season is right around the corner. Now, I am joined today. I wrote this specifically in the notes, so I'm going to read it directly from the notes. I'm joined today by Better Live Than Dead's resident AFC expert, Bills Mafia's favorite Jets fan, John Cimino, as mentioned. John,
you just put me over like big. I hope I don't disappoint there, because you call me the resident AFC. If I'm the AFC expert, then y'all are in trouble.
Hey, look, that's what we're here for. We're here to shoot the breeze and talk about football. Our three big things have aptly been renamed this week, this episode. And for the next, at least this episode and the next episode, four big divisions. We're going to start off in the AFC North. What we're going to do here, John, we're going to talk one big topic. We're going to provide predictions, which, again, as I mentioned, no longer on Twitter. So I have found other ways to come across this information. There's a nice website out there called sportsnotnaut.com. They've got a lot of expert opinions, and it seems like it's very logical. So I was using their predictions to kind of base our conversation today. So
sure.
With that being said, we start in the AFC North, the one topic here, with a retooled Ravens squad. They've got Lamar Jackson long-term contract extension, Kenny Pickett entrenched in Pittsburgh and looking better so far in preseason, and a full unsuspended offseason for Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. Is this division still Cincinnati's to lose?
I don't know that it's Cincinnati's to lose. I think Cincinnati is obviously the front runner. They do have Joe Burrow, and pending his health, that's going to be the big key thing there, is his health and how well that offensive line protects him, and as well as the play calling and runs to pass ratio, et cetera, et cetera. They have quite a bit of talent on their team as well. So I think Cincinnati, the Sports Nuts prediction there that you have on the notes, I'd say that's pretty on par. I would say don't sleep on those doggone Baltimore Ravens, though. To your point with former MVP Lamar Jackson now being paid, and also the addition of Odell Beckham Jr., the Ravens are always going to play everybody tough there. So I don't know that I see it as, Cincinnati walking in. I don't see it as like a Buffalo Bills situation of the last couple of years where you kind of had an idea based on how the Bills were doing versus how their counterparts in the AFC East were doing, that it was their division to lose. I don't get that vibe with Cincinnati. I don't get that vibe with Buffalo this year either. But I certainly don't get that vibe with Cincinnati. But certainly Cincinnati should kind of coast through and win the division. Though I would anticipate Baltimore giving them a bit of headache along the way.
So my personal opinion on this one is I think really it's a 2-horse race until Cleveland proves otherwise. And same with Pittsburgh. If they prove otherwise, that their offense makes that next step this year.
Right.
I think too, if Baltimore loosens the reins on Lamar Jackson and lets him be a quarterback all the time and lets him throw the ball and kind of allows Lamar Jackson to matriculate the offense down the field. One of my favorite sports sayings there. I mean, I think Baltimore will definitely, if that is the case, contend for the division. Certainly a wild card, if not the division, I should say. But I think it's, without putting too much pressure on the Bengals, as if the Bengals are listening to this podcast, maybe they are. I don't necessarily think it's their division to lose, but I think it's their division to win for
yes.
sure. I don't think that the terminology is fair. I mean, yes, granted, they are one of the top 3 teams in the AFC, Kansas City and Buffalo being the other 2, understandably, that there's a lot more pressure on them, but they don't seem to mind it. And that's another reason why I'm saying I don't think it's a division to lose, but a division to win for them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to crack Joe Burrow. Like, that dude has been in the spotlight, and playing in big, meaningful games since his college career. And they don't call him the modern day Joe Cool for nothing. I mean, nothing rattles this kid.
And their defensive coordinator has continued to be absolutely fantastic when it comes to game planning for every single team that the Cincinnati Bengals play, which, again, it takes that when your defense is able to adjust and handle teams' game plans appropriately, it goes from, hey, is this game the offense is to lose or to win? And there you go. You go, okay, so hey, we don't, the defense being good takes the pressure off of the offense. You go, hey, you just go out there and do your thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does good defense. And I mean, last year the Bengals were actually the 8th ranked offense in the I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8th ranked offense in the NFL. So they will put up points and they will give opposing defenses trouble. And if the defense, continues or even if they've upgraded their defense, if they upgrade their game plan and they keep, not allowing points to be scored or holding teams to 3 or 3 and outs or whatever, the Bengals offense, is going to score. It's going to be very difficult for any team to come back from. So
again, as long as everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, as long as everybody stays healthy. Absolutely. Especially on that, again, that offensive line and protecting Joe Burrow. That's going to be the key. The Bengals are a different team when Joe Burrow is not taking snaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
offensively,
Joe Burrow coming back from his calf injury. I know last year Jamar Chase had some injury scares and some injury issues. Again, you want those 2 guys to stay as healthy as possible. But again, you can't go wrong when Joe Burrow's under center. And I know Lamar Jackson is he's a former NFL MVP. He's very talented. Deshaun Watson's very talented. And apparently coming out of Pittsburgh this offseason, this preseason, again, consider the sources. It is, essentially state-run media. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers beat writers and insiders all saying that Kenny Pickett looks good and looks like he's taken the next step. and we know how good that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is. I mean, and again, the situation where in the many moons that their head coach has been there, they have been 500 or better every single season. Right. So again, they always linger. But again, my thought, and this is something that we'll talk about here later in the podcast, this may be a division that just for the sake of the rest of the AFC, it's a great thing. For the NFC or the AFC North, not a great thing. All these teams are going to beat the ever-loving daylights out of each other because they are all very good.
Yes, and Pittsburgh is another team, you know, again, to your point with how well they're coached and how well they've been coached by Coach Tomlin. I mean, you can never sleep on Pittsburgh either. Kenny Pickett, you know, even though he in last year's rookie season only 7 touchdowns and 9, you know, to 9 interceptions, he still has a 7-5 record. So they've got a good team around him. You know, the Steelers won 7-5 in his games that he started and he played in last year. If they're saying he looks a little bit better, you keep in mind this is a full season now, a full off season, a full training camp, and even the preseason where he's solely with the first team, where he might not have been. He was not last year when he was a rookie. They were, you know, they had the eggs in the Money Mitch basket. Obviously, that didn't work out very well for him. But Kenny Pickett is talented, as well documented. So I'm expecting to see Pickett take a bit of a leap and going into year 2 and not having as many hiccups. I see him as following more along the lines of a Trevor Lawrence than a Zach Wilson, let's say.
And for the record, too, it is Sunday. I am not working. I can hear my computer going off in the background. Apparently, there is an outage somewhere, which is why my computer is going off.
I can't hear it though. If that's any consolation, I've got my noise canceling Beats headphones on as well, so I could hear like everything in this podcast, including myself. And yeah,
I just got the team's bing bong is going off in the background. I'm like, oh my Lord,
bing bong, huh?
It just boop. I'm like, oh no.
Yes.
Oh no. It's Sunday.
It is Sunday, and your computer decided to.
You're not kidding, man. You are not kidding. I had to turn.
I'm so happy I get to incorporate my TJCMS soundboard to any podcast now. You better live than dead. Get ready. We're going smut sometimes.
Hey man, look we get that we get to the point where we're gonna get some soundboards integrated. We'll get some nice audio integrated. We'll make this thing a little more legit. But
I have an audio a video, sports related video that I would like to play a little later on in the podcast as we go to our BS segment. So I got that loaded and ready to go too.
Hey, speaking of being legit, let's move over to the AFC South now. The one topic here. Actually, sorry, before we move on, I forgot. I didn't even mention the Sportsnaut prediction. Sportsnaut has Cincinnati 11-6, Baltimore 11-6, Cleveland 10-7, Pittsburgh 9-8 as about normal or about as average as you can be there, with everybody being within a few games of each other. But speaking of legit, the AFC South, the one topic here, was last year's Jaguars squad a mirage, or have they finally taken the next step and made a move to legitimize their franchise themselves as contenders, not only in the AFC South, but in the AFC itself under head coach Doug Peterson?
I think they certainly looked a lot better last year than they did the year before. And then the year before that, obviously, Trevor Lawrence took a major leap, and they continue to build around him. Doug Peterson, very smart offensive coach. You see, you know what he did historically with names like Carson Wentz and Nick Foles as well. Won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, who began that season as a backup, and he was the MVP. Might have been Carson Wentz the whole season. Carson Wentz might have been that MVP that year had he not been hurt. So you can see the transition between what's his face, Urban Meyer and Doug Peterson with Trevor Lawrence alone, let alone that entire team. But they have quite the atmosphere there in old Duval country. I don't necessarily know that I am completely sold on them in the way that Sportsnaut might be. Just because when I look over their schedule, I see more than 7 opportunities for them to lose. But in the same within that division the way that it is now, I don't believe Tennessee to be on the rise. I believe them to kind of be more, they may have hit the ceiling with what their roster is now, and I think the rest of the league has figured them out, especially Derrick Henry when you're relying on him as much as you are. That's kind of going to be hard for them to, get over that hump. I don't see that they made any major additions or anything to kind of go next level. You know what I mean? In Tennessee.
Yeah.
So I will agree with Sportsnaut in saying that I believe Jacksonville to be the favorite in the South, but I don't believe it to be by that predictor that you have there in the notes. I think it'll be a closer race than it might be.
I was going to say before I give you my thoughts here, the predictions here, just so I don't forget them: Jacksonville 10-7, Tennessee 7-10, Indianapolis 6-11, Houston 5-12. So, starting off with that, I think that I'm not comfortable putting a number on it, but I think Jacksonville will win the division.
Yes.
With that being said, who finishes second, third, and fourth? I think it will ultimately be who adjusts appropriately the quickest. I agree with you, John. Tennessee is they feel like they're on the back nine. They had the chance with Ryan Tannehill a few years in a row to make a charge,
right?
But couldn't get past the Kansas Cities, the Cincinnati's of the world. Indianapolis, I mean, it was preseason, but they played the Buffalo Bills yesterday on Saturday, the 12th, and it was awful in terms of their offensive line play. They don't have Jonathan Taylor. It doesn't sound like Jonathan Taylor is going to be an Indianapolis Colt this season, whether that is an IR move or it is a trade. Jonathan Taylor, the relationship there with from ownership down has soured very quickly. Understandably so. He wants to be paid, and Jim Irsay came out and said, we're not doing that. You work for you essentially honor the contract that you have, which running backs are getting a raw deal and something needs to happen with that, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be a positive for Anthony Richardson's development to put him out on the field behind that offensive line. But then are you going to pay Gardner Minshew to essentially be a crash test dummy for 17 games? Because not only again, it's Buffalo. So Buffalo is very good defense. Right. They've got Sean McDermott, who that first game, I feel bad for the Colts because Sean McDermott was pretty much just blitzing all the time. It's preseason, and these guys are getting completely plastered. I mean, Gardner, that's the thing. The offensive line for the Colts, not great. They do have a couple bright spots, but the gaps are big holes. That's what she said.
Heyo.
But when you could tell there was a difference when they brought the second and third team in. It got not progressively worse, John. It was like you're trying to to stop a water leak, a gushing water leak with a piece of old duct tape. Just blew right open, and Gardner Minshew was getting rocked. Sam Ellinger was getting rocked, and it's like, man, what about this Colts squad? And now, mind you, I do have to send out an apology to my friends from work. The company I work for is based out of Indianapolis, so I do work with a lot of Colts fans. So if they do hear this, I'm not purposefully going out of my way to trash your team. This is just how I feel, unfortunately. When you look at teams like with Tennessee, you say, okay, first off, with Jacksonville, they're going to be good. They've got, if nothing else, Trevor Lawrence has taken a step. Will he take another step? That's a big question. But they long-term contract for Evan Ingram, another year with Zay Jones. They've got Calvin Ridley now, who looks, wow, he looks fast. He looks ready to play. And that could be a game changer for that Jacksonville offense. But when you look at Tennessee, what redeeming qualities do they have? What could they use to push themselves to win maybe an extra 2 or 3 games that they shouldn't win? Derrick Henry. When you look at Indianapolis, what do they have? I got nothing for you. When you look at Houston, I think Houston is going to be interesting because, again, do they start CJ Stroud out of the gate? If they do, it could be a bit of a roller coaster. I think he's very talented, maybe one of the best quarterbacks to come out of this class down the road, obviously, because he was one of the top prospects. But I'm saying as the career goes on. But DeMeco Ryans, I think it's going to be. I don't know the best way to say this. I think at the start of the season, the Houston Texans will be, at the end of the season, they will be rapidly improved and completely different looking than they did at the start of the season. Because if there's one thing we've seen about these coaches that come from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, is that they don't mess around. They're very smart people. DeMeco Ryans is a very, very, very smart defensive mind.
Right.
And even if that offense struggles, that defense is going to be a bear. And if that defense can rapidly improve and rapidly grow in that system, that will most likely mirror that 49ers system. Then you get to that point where what redeeming quality do they have? Well, the defense is really good. Okay. And as we saw, John, we saw this, and I mean, this is our 7th or 8th year of doing Trust the Podcast. We've seen many of Buffalo Bills teams, many of Buffalo Bills games where the offense is playing like diarrhea running down your leg, but that defense, man, it's like they literally built a concrete wall, and then you accidentally score a couple points and you win. So that's the kind of thing I think Houston can have.
That was kind of the story with the New York Jets last year too, when you think about it, how well their defense had improved and kept them in games where the year before in Zach Wilson's development, it was terrible and they didn't really do very well. So yeah, if you build that defense and that defense prevents everybody from scoring points, holy hell, I'm going to sound like John Madden here. But if the defense prevents the opposing team from scoring points and the offense scores points, your team's going to have a great shot at winning the game.
Yeah. So if you score more points than you allow, you're going to win a couple games. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And Houston could do that. I do believe that them to be, closer to the, the bottom than the middle or the top, but certainly we've seen before where teams kind of, play for pride and know that they're playing pride, and you can, and they'll put in the work, and I could see the Texans being spoiler. And to go back to Indianapolis, even when you were talking about your coworkers and your company being based in Indianapolis and dealing with Colts, I don't think anyone ever trash talks like the Colts, because the Colts are such, they'll trash talk Jim Irsay, and justifiably so, because he's a weirdo. But the Colts as an organization, that's a classic NFL franchise. That's, up there, Johnny Unitas and Peyton Manning, and the Colts have always really done well by their fans. And I think right now, post Manning, post Luck, they're just having that struggle. You know what I mean? And I don't think anybody wants to see them do bad, but they're not really doing anything to, I think, move forward. So this is going to be, I think, one of those Houston Texan like years for Indianapolis as well. So again, the sport's not particular here. I agree.
Sorry, John. I think the problem with them is the same problem we see with a lot of franchises that are looking to recreate their identity, and kind of what Houston was struggling with for a while. Like, are you trying to be good or are you trying to be bad? Is that they've just, when you're a good football team and you make a couple bad mistakes, you can kind of deal with it and work with it.
Right.
With Indianapolis, it's okay. Well, we hired the wrong guy. Or Frank Reich was good, but then the message got stale. Or, hey, our franchise quarterback retired because we almost got him paralyzed or killed or whatever, however dramatic you want to be. So who are we going to get? Okay, you go out and get Phil Rivers. You put all your eggs in one basket. It almost worked out for you. And then what do you do? Nothing.
Exactly.
So it's like you can't get away with it. You can't get away with screwing up.
They didn't even, yeah, right, exactly. Like, you could have at least tried to get a veteran. That's what a lot of these teams don't, or at least I, operating from a degree of logic, don't understand with some of these teams. Everybody wants that next rookie superstar. And so they're always looking to draft rookie quarterback, and not properly develop them the old time honored tradition, true way that a NFL quarterback should be developed. Like, it's one thing to go into, put your eggs in a rookie quarterback's basket, but you got to get some kind of veteran and some kind of veteran presence that's been around there. And yeah, you may take your lumps, but you let your quarterback, your rookie quarterback kind of sit and develop that way, understanding that you might be hurting the first year or two, right?
You have to build the system.
And a lot of these teams don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Build this. Exactly.
Watching back, not to jump into the NFC talk here, but watching back on the Johnny Manziel documentary that just came out on Netflix recently, which is absolutely fantastic.
I got to watch that. I haven't
very
seen
good.
it yet.
But then you go back to the year where the Cowboys were, the Cowboys are going to pick up Johnny Manziel. They're going to get Johnny Manziel. And then they go get Zach Martin. And you're like, well, why would you do that? But hindsight being 2020, you are building your team from the line out to give whomever is behind, whoever's in the backfield, the best chance to succeed. So like with Houston, I mean, they were doing something. I mean, they've definitely hit on a few picks that right now it's not sexy. They're not going out and getting the greatest player of the draft, but they are building very quickly in positions of need in the National Football League. And all of a sudden you're going to be like, hey, where did Houston come from? Because all of a sudden you hit on one or two of those picks, you go out, you hire a very, very smart coach. I mean, there's nothing to say that DeMeco Ryans can't work out. Mm-hmm. But from what we've seen and how fast he's moving up, like here's the thing too. And again, I know I'm going long on DeMeco Ryans, but he didn't rapidly ascend in a system that is, I don't know, mediocre, I guess. He was arguably the best defensive coordinator in the league for one of the best teams in the league that arguably could have gone to and won the Super Bowl had they not lost their literal entire quarterback depth chart in one game. Which let me tell you what, real quick, I know that's NFC stuff. In an alternative universe somewhere, Phillip Rivers wins the Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers, as we heard about. Oh my God.
Could you imagine how awesome that would have been?
I just reading the story I got was like, man, I need someone to talk about this at length because holy crap. But DeMeco Ryans came from a system that's a very good system, and you have to work your way up. And if there's one thing that Kyle Shanahan does, it's not missing when it comes to hiring and developing coaches. Yep. So I think that DeMeco Ryans is going to work out. It may take a couple of years, but I also think that they're in it for the long haul with not only a very smart defensive mind, but a franchise a legend in that franchise. He's going to have a lot more rope than I think we all realize. And
that's good. That actually talks to, or kind of goes back to the point. I don't know if it was last BLTD podcast or maybe one of the Trust the Podcast episodes that we did, where we mentioned about coaching changes and kind of having to have a few years in that system to have it implemented. It might have been the contract extension cast when we were talking about Sean McDermott and how, it was trust the process in the beginning. And now here we are some 6-7 years later, and that process is in full play and it's, kind of standardized there. And it's a full integrated culture that's now integrated into the fabric of the Buffalo Bills being, so many of these stories here about head coaches coming in and then, one and done, or after 2 years, it's done. I hope Houston, because they don't have the best track record with keeping coaches beyond 1 season, 2 seasons, Lovie Smith. Hello. I'm hoping that they'll actually give the chance, and Houston fans, Texan fans specifically, need to understand, like, it's not going to be win now with that team. So they're going to have to be patient and deal with 2-3 more years maybe. But if, weaning out the old, as we're beginning to see kind of with the New York Jets, even weaning out the Adam Gase era and all of that, the Todd Bowles era, right? Robert Saleh had to do that quite a bit the first year and eat a lot of crow. And then the second year, it was much improved because a lot of his people were there, and the system, it was kind of a bit of a fluidity going in from year 1 to year 2 and now into year 3 under Saleh's administration. They're looking like a team that at least could string more than 4 wins together. Houston
That's
isn't like that.
Yeah, that's a
but if
cliffhanger for later on.
Yes, but for Houston fans, y'all got to be patient, and Houston's administration has to be patient as well, and let the coach and let the coach get his system implemented. So hopefully we'll see something different out of the AFC South in a couple of years. I feel like the South right now, they all seem to go kind of in stages, because a few years ago, wasn't the AFC West the toughest division?
Yeah.
Now it's the East. What's to say the South couldn't be in a few years from now too, with all that young talent down there and some fluidity building it up and having that be, next. It goes in stages. So,
not to mention too, something that I'm just looking at here based off of their schedule, they're taking on the AFC North, the AFC South, obviously, and they take on the NFC South this year. So they take on the Falcons, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Buccaneers. There are more than enough opportunities for Houston, I'm struggling to find if any team has upside here, and maybe it's just me drinking the Kool-Aid, the NRG Kool-Aid from the stadium. Just let me have it. I would say Houston probably has the most upside here, but then also remember that Jacksonville, a well-oiled machine at this point, apparently, also plays those bad teams as well, which is probably why that 10-7 record is the way that it is, or the prediction at least. And I wouldn't be shocked if Jacksonville went out and won 12 games this year, just because, again, the track record that Doug Peterson has with working with young, talented quarterbacks. I mean, for Christ's sake, like you said before, he made Carson Wentz look like a genius, and now look at Carson Wentz. He's a pile of
I don't want to say he's a player. Yeah, well, I feel bad for Carson Wentz because he kind of had, the injury bug, one injury, and he never kind of.
Did you see the picture of him recently working out where he had like a Colts helmet?
No, yeah, the Eagles helmet,
Washington Commanders jersey,
Washington
and
jersey, and
Eagles
the Colts
pants.
Yeah. I did see that. It was hilarious.
Yeah, some people on the internet were they were up in arms about it. Like, who cares, man? I wear clothes all the time too. People don't get mad about it. But John,
let him do his thing.
We've got the second half of the podcast coming up, which I may say this is the meat to the sandwich coming up. I've saved the 2 best for last.
Sure.
The AFC West, the AFC East. With that being said, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more of the Better Live Than Dead podcast right after this on the Gear Radio Network. And we are back here on I almost said on Trust the Podcast.
Old habits die hard. But we'll be back with Trust the Podcast very, very soon.
Yeah, back here on the Better Live Than Dead podcast. We're talking the AFC Previewcast. We're talking about the AFC West. John, we know how good the Kansas City Chiefs are. There's no need to sit here and wax poetic about how good the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs are. This season, Sportsnot has predictions being Kansas City 12-5, Los Angeles 11-6, Denver 10-7, and Vegas 5-12. Brings me to my one topic here, which got a little information for it because I can never go on a podcast without finding out something random that just makes your brain hurt.
Indeed.
Can the Chargers finally play a formidable foe to the Kansas City Chiefs? With that being said, Justin Herbert signed a 5-year, $262.5 million extension this offseason, making him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history based on the $52.5 million average annual value. Here's the fun part about Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
In a stat that's been tracked since the 1970 merger for both sides of the stat, the Chargers have scored more points in Herbert's starts, 1,233, than any other quarterback in their first 3 seasons. But the Chargers have also allowed more points in Herbert's starts, 1,256 points, than any other quarterback through their first 3 seasons. So they've scored the most, but they've also allowed the most. And I think John, that tells you everything you need to know about this Los Angeles Chargers team.
Yep. The defense needs to come through and help out that offense. We always hear about, how the offense has to help out the defense in most cases when the defense is doing very, very well. But if the defense is allowing that much, sometimes it's really hard for the offense that is scoring to keep scoring and supplement that. You know what I mean? So I would agree with Sportsnot's predictions there. I think Kansas City's just Kansas City. Los Angeles is absolutely going to give them the toughest challenge, though. Herbert's 5-year extension that you had mentioned, making him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, now actually bumped Patrick Mahomes crazily enough down to the 9th highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now, when, just a few seasons ago, he reset that market. It's crazy how quickly that changes too. But yes, that defense has got to come together. That defense has got to keep opposing offenses off that field. The offense in Los Angeles on the Chargers is very dynamic. They are going to score their points. They're going to drive the ball down, and they're going to do their part. If the defense even, slightly upgrades from where they were last year, they could be challenging Kansas City. I don't see them taking the crown, but as a wild card, absolutely. I don't believe in Denver at all. With, even though they have Sean Payton there, I think we're probably maybe a season and a half away from them kind of, reaping the benefits of that.
I think with Sean Payton in Denver, it's going to be, instead of building up to have multiple shots, it's starting to feel very much like it's going to take a few years to figure out if Russell's the guy for that system.
Yeah.
Which, as we've talked about, he's not going anywhere. That's a very nice contract extension that he signed that really doesn't have an out in it, unless they want to pay him a ton of money to not play for the Denver Broncos. But they may quite literally only have 1, maybe 2 good shots at being a Super Bowl contender before they have to figure out their quarterback position again.
For sure.
The crazy thing about Brandon Staley, and I know you're going to mention Las Vegas, let's just be honest. I don't think anybody knows what the Raiders are going to do this year, just simply based off the fact that Josh McDaniels outside of New England has not been good. He has Jimmy Garoppolo, who couldn't pass a physical in the offseason after having foot surgery. He finally did pass a physical, but nobody knows what to expect from him.
Right.
Maybe they'll sneak out and win a few games, but I think that the gap from the Raiders to everybody else is big. I just be honest. I think it's very big.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Josh McDaniels, was great as the OC in New England. He had Belichick to do the main job, and Brady as the quarterback. I know Jimmy G is his guy, and Jimmy G is a winner, and he wins wherever he goes. But this is going to be a very tall task.
Well, and don't forget too, they don't have Josh Jacobs.
They don't. You're right. They do not. So
like it's got to be Jimmy Garoppolo. It's got to be that passing game, and I'm not too comfortable with that. I mean, again, they continue to bring in more Patriots in the offseason. They've essentially made it New England West, but
in New England West, Green Bay East, as we, sometimes you got to work. You got to go with what you're comfortable with. But what I'm finding is, with Las Vegas in particular, you don't have Tom Brady. Tom Brady made the Patriots the Patriots. And, when you brought Tom Brady and down to Tampa, and it was Tampa Tom, and it was the Tampa Bay Patriots. Tampa. And it was the Tampa Bay Patriots, so to speak, right? The Patriot way being down there. And then they win the Super Bowl their first season with Tom Brady. I mean, that's big. That's kind of like, you're missing a very, 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 very large piece of that puzzle. So, and Jimmy G's, Jimmy G. He's good, but he's been out of that New England system for a while now. And I know he has some familiarity in it, but he's been in the Shanahan system now for 3-4 years. So kind of reacclimating himself to whatever system McDaniels is going to put in there with not even a fraction of the talent around him that New England had. It's probably going to be a tough road for them. They may sneak 6 wins because they're the Raiders, and the Raiders do tend to play tough, the aura. But they're not winning that division. They're not even coming close.
Looking back at Brandon Staley, who has felt like, John, it felt like he's been around for 10 years. This is his 3rd season as head coach of the Chargers.
Oh my goodness.
9-8, 10-7 last season, 19-15 overall record. He's 0-1 in the postseason. And I forgot about this because it feels like it's been so long ago. Remember, John, they had a 27-0 lead over the Jaguars and blew the game.
They did. They did.
And I thought Brandon Staley
again feeds the point
then.
about Jacksonville, which again feeds the point about Jacksonville and their ascension and their, kind of, will they take that leap? I mean, I forgot about that.
What is it, John? You play to win the game?
You play to win the game. That's a sound bite I need to get. Herman Edwards.
That is one of our favorites here on the podcast that we like
I am going to find that, and I'm going to add that to the board.
So how long do we think? How long of a leash do we think Brandon Staley has this season? I mean, right now, looking at the Los Angeles Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get their schedule popped up here because it's interesting. They play the Dolphins, the Titans, the Vikings, the Raiders, and then they're on a bye week. I would say if they don't come out of that stretch 3-1,
mm-hmm.
I think that the rumblings are going to get loud quick. Yeah. I think he is going into the season with a white hot seat so far because again, they are a very talented team.
Mm-hmm.
They have Justin Herbert, who is also very talented. But here's the thing. They did the same thing the Buffalo Bills did. They blew an opportunity to build a team around a talented, cost-controlled quarterback, and now they have to figure out how to win with a very expensive quarterback. I know that this is his last year as being a cost-controlled quarterback for the Chargers, but still, that is a very big deal because it doesn't get any easier from here.
Exactly.
So it's going to take some creativity. It's going to take some smart minds to figure it out. I still think the Chargers are going to be in the wild card hunt if something were to happen to Patrick Mahomes. I know we heard this offseason that his ankle healed a lot slower than expected, but we've heard nothing about it this preseason. But as you know, defensive ends and defensive players in the National Football League, they can smell blood in the water, and you got to believe people are going to be going for that ankle as much as they possibly can to see if it's healed. Is it in good shape? We'll double check that one real quick. So we'll see about that. I don't have any other reason to believe that Kansas City doesn't win the division, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll probably be the head of the class in the AFC again, barring anything crazy. Just simply because they play Denver twice, they play Las Vegas twice. They're walking out of that 4-0. 3-1, something like that.
Yeah,
and that puts you already on a fast track.
I would give 3-1 between those, and then splitting between the Chargers, depending on their defense. That would be the because Kansas City's defense is pretty good.
When it comes to Denver, I was telling my brother a couple days ago, actually yesterday. If you want to know how it went in the first preseason game, the starters like Russell Wilson and the starters played 4 series in the first preseason game, which I don't think happens very often. I can't remember the last time I saw Russell Wilson play that many series in a series. Is that even a word? I don't know. Sean Payton was not happy. Let's put it that way with the offense.
Sean Payton doesn't seem very happy at all in general.
It just looks like
a miserable twat.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's that too. Russell Wilson just looks like he's just missing burst. Like the burst that he had out of the pocket in Seattle, it's like he left it in Seattle and then Geno Smith just picked it up and attached it to his back because he rolls out and I'm just like, who are you? What happened?
Indeed.
And maybe it's just a preseason thing. But
it could be it's a preseason thing, but I mean, I don't believe in Denver at all.
That's right.
And it has nothing to do with the comments Sean Payton made and the drama about, what he said about Nathaniel Hackett and everything, because Nathaniel Hackett wasn't a good head coach, so he wasn't wrong there. But I don't think I don't believe in them because I believe the hype that of Russell Wilson going there and the let's ride and all that crap last year. I think Russell Wilson is no longer a top 10 NFL quarterback. He might be top 15, bottom of that at this point. I think he's regressing and no one's ready to admit that. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes there. I think Sean Payton is going to want to that Sean Payton's going to want to have his own guy inserted sooner rather than later instead of inheriting one.
Just go get Drew Brees off of NBC or wherever he is now. But moving over to the AFC, John, we've talked a ton about the AFC. We talk about the Bills all the time. We talk about the Jets almost as much, rightfully so, because we love both of those teams individually, respectively. But Sportsnot kind of had a little bit of a surprise here. They've got the Jets winning the division at 12-5, Buffalo 11-6, Miami 10-7, New England 8-9. My one topic here: can a quote-unquote pissed-off Bills squad hold off the improved AFC East and remind the rest of the National Football League just how talented they are? I say pissed off, because when you look on the outside and you kind of move yourself out of the Western New York bubble, I got the hiccups all of a sudden, apparently. When you move out of that bubble, when you move out of that bubble, I'm thinking to myself, like, the Bills are the Bills. They're going to be fine. People are like, well, this Bills team looks pissed. This Bills team looks... Man, they look like they've got their eyes set, locked in, tunnel vision, like they're ready to prove that they're still a great team. And I'm like, did I miss something?
I've heard that too, and I'm sitting here as the Bills Mafia's favorite Jets fan, going, what do you mean? It looked to me, I feel like they're looking at it like a business as usual approach, which is the approach they should be looking. Maybe it's
the talk of the town has been the Jets, been the Dolphins getting better. The Dolphins go out, granted, Jalen Ramsey's hurt now and he's going to be out for quite a while. But, they go out, they get Jalen Ramsey. They're getting better. They looked really good last year. New England goes out and gets Bill O'Brien to help out Mac Jones. The Buffalo Bills just kind of didn't really do much. They got Dalton Kincaid in the draft.
They didn't really need to do much, though. They have the talent there. They have the weapons there.
Point.
They have the manpower there, so they didn't really need to. They did a lot, as we've documented on Trust the Podcast over the years. They've done a lot to build and bolster.
Everybody knows by now. We've done how many episodes of Trust the Podcast? I mean, let me take a look here really quick, because
I think it was 129 last time.
That sounds about right. I want to get the right number because I want to make sure. I want to be a little more dramatic as usual.
That's just your OCD kicking in.
If you can believe it, I want to be dramatic here in the podcast. John, you're right. 129 episodes.
Yeah, buddy. Contract extension cast was the last one.
So in 129 episodes of Trust the Podcast, you probably know by now that I'm not like I don't dislike Sean McDermott, but I'm not like leading the Sean McDermott fan club and handing out pins and patches and stickers, right? But we've talked, I believe, at length, more than enough about it, that Sean McDermott is taking over the defense. Something has to be said for that. Something has to be said for that change being made. Something has to be said for getting back a healthy Von Miller. Tre'Davious White's healthy. He's back in the system. Micah Hyde is healthy. He's back. Jordan Poyer's healthy. He's back. They go out, they get some some very talented defensive depth. Look at Leonard Floyd. That's going to help. Offensively, they don't go out and get a big, sexy name wide receiver wise. They don't go out and get Odell Beckham Jr. They don't go out and get what's his face? I just completely forgot his name. DeAndre Hopkins. They don't go out and get DeAndre Hopkins. They go out, they stick with James Cook at running back. They say, look, we're going to go get Latavius Murray. We'll be perfectly fine. And then Nyheim Hines gets hit by a jet ski, which I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, but, that was rough. That was rough.
They go out, they draft Osiris Torrance, who will probably, if not out of the gate, will probably be the right guard, taking over for Ryan Bates. They go out, they get Dalton Kincaid. Out of the gate, may not be huge. As the season progresses, could be very important. He's got a very good rapport so far with Josh Allen early on in camp. Also, don't forget, I know before DeMar Hamlin died on the football field, he wasn't like a superstar player, but there's got to be something to be said for a man who died on the field, recovered, came back, and still, we saw on Saturday, making tackles, even though it made me incredibly anxious to see him do that. He looks like a man possessed. I don't understand the better way to say it than that, but he looked good. He looks ready. He looks ready to return. That also, I mean, because that's the one thing last year, John, we talked about this at the end of the year. The Bills lost their way after DeMar Hamlin was resuscitated on the field and came back to life.
Yeah.
And I'm continuing to mention it to make a point here that the Bills went through something incredibly traumatic last year. As the season went on, you could see the air slowly coming out of the tires by the time they got to the playoffs when Josh Allen's girlfriend allegedly lost her shit. Allegedly. We cannot confirm nor deny. But now he's dating a very
some of my Bills backer friends that I talk to that listen to the podcast have filled me in on what they've heard, and I'm leaning more towards fact than rumor with it. Seems to be pretty consistent.
I can talk to you off the record. I cannot talk on the record, but I can tell you
that's fine.
We've heard some things. We've seen some things. We've confirmed. We've denied. It pays to have friends in high and low places, I guess is the best way to put it. But Josh Allen has a wonderful girlfriend now. I say she's wonderful because she's an actor. She's a singer. We've seen her all over the place. She also makes a cameo in one of the moments in Sesame Street where I almost pissed myself when they're talking about what you can build towers out of. And then Elmo goes, a plastic water bottle and a paper towel roll. And I swear to God, the first time I saw that, I almost pissed myself. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen, but it was so funny. I'll have to send it to you. Yeah, it's a parent thing. If you're not a parent, you won't understand. You don't find the humor in stuff. Like we were watching Baby Shark earlier today, John, and the ladies like they're like the horn is a fart. When you poop, that's the noise you make is you fart. And I'm like, this is how kids. Exactly. My daughter's gonna walk around and be like, when you poop, you fart. And I'm like, where did you get that from?
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's some. If the pizza baby is listening, I've got some solid sound advice for you. It's a knowledge that will take you through the test of time here. You may pee before poop, but you may not poop before pee.
That's fair. Also, my friends call her the calzone.
The calzone. Oh, I like that gimmick.
Yeah.
The calzone. That's great.
Going back to the AFC East, though, I think the Dolphins. I mean, we'll talk about the Patriots in a few minutes. That's a nice little cliffhanger for you. Mm-hmm. But whether or not you care, that's up to you. But I think the Dolphins will make a step. I don't know if it's going to be forward or backwards, but they're going to do something. I don't think Mike McDaniels is a dumb guy. They're bringing in Vic Fangio, whom, having listened to the Playmakers podcast recently on Spotify, again, another great, I think it's 4 or 5 or 6 episodes where they talk to Kyle Shanahan, they talk to Sean McVay, they talk to Mike McDaniel, all that whole group of people. And what I didn't know was that Vic Fangio was like the brains behind those defenses, right? Oh. So what do you do to get better? You bring in Vic Fangio himself. So right. I'm expecting Miami to be better, but you're putting a lot of pressure on a team that clearly was good with Tua Tagovailoa, and then when Tua got hurt, Even when Tua was healthy, it was So
well, I think that's going to be the start and stop of the Dolphins. They do have a very good team and a very good roster on paper. Injuries aside, keeping Tua healthy, is that going to happen? If Tua is healthy, I think the Dolphins it'll be a 3-team race: Buffalo, New York, Miami. If Tua is not healthy, I don't think the Dolphins are going to be doing a whole lot. So I think their season really, I hate to pin it on one person or say it hinges on one person, but it may very well hinge on Tua Tagovailoa.
And I've got this feeling about the Jets too, John, where either they're going to come out of the gate hot like the Dolphins did and then kind of trail off as the season goes on and teams react to them, or vice versa, where they're going to start off slow and get hot and be more. For your sake, I would hope it would be struggle out of the gate, figure out, take your lumps in September, October, November, get hot, and be good in December, January, and potentially into February.
I feel like that's kind of where it's going to go with the New York Jets, to be honest, just because I've watched a lot of New York Jets football in my life. And I if anything, I would expect them to, I wouldn't be surprised. I shouldn't say expect, but I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Bills in week 1 and then maybe drop the next 2 or 3, right?
I mean, you've got Nathaniel Hackett there, who's worked with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. So a lot of the schemes, a lot of the terminology, I would have to presume, is going to be relatively familiar.
Yeah.
But you're putting the one thing about the Jets, I think that I'm kind of, it's very questionable for me, is the defense. And I say this because last year they were so good. And the one thing in the National Football League, unless you're the Bengals, the Chiefs, and sometimes the Buffalo Bills, you can't really count on, hey, we did really good last year, so we're going to be really good this year.
Right.
With a team like the Jets that are still trying to find their way and still trying to set that foundation, again, Robert Saleh is a very smart head coach. Again, he's part of that Playmakers series I was telling you about on Spotify. That's just, it makes your head hurt with how smart these people are and how they've figured out how to not only revitalize but grow the game of football in a way that benefits their careers, which is really, it's incredible. It's what you want to do.
Absolutely. My trajectory on that whole thing changed a couple of years ago when I saw I think it might have been the top 100 NFL special that they were doing, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick were actually on the set with the analysts talking and hearing how smart like those two were. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, the
way that they think about football is
it's insane. And then even
like
watching,
never mind.
Did you? I think I'm going to know where you were going there. You degenerate, you. Did you happen to watch Hard Knocks? The last episode of Hard Knocks with the
I'm gonna have to find a way to acquire.
First of all, Homer hat, taking the Homer hat off, it's a very good show. But seeing how, to your point, how Robert Saleh kind of looks at football and views football, and just how these coaches and even the players, and even listening to Aaron Rodgers talk about, when he's talking with Zach Wilson about, looking this way because of this and this and this. And I'm sitting here like, damn, like I've got the Madden thing. I press the right trigger button and it'll bring up and it shows me the design of the plays. I couldn't explain it, but these folks are talking like based on the defense that's out there. Like they have an idea of who's going where and why and how. And it's mind blowing to me. There's how smart these football lifers are to that game.
If you are into the Chinese government stealing your data on TikTok, I had to throw that out there because
I don't do the TikTok.
Real quick, working in IT, it really opens up your mind to how stupid and vulnerable and just dumb people can be.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I don't want TikTok on my phone because the Chinese government's going to steal my data. I'm like, what the hell do you think everyone else is doing the rest of the time?
Right.
Like they're all mining your data. They all know who you are and what you do. Well, how do you think they know all this stuff? Because they're there. Anyways, tinfoil hat off. There's a guy on TikTok. Let's try that again. His name is Kirk Benker, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He was the backup quarterback for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay for a while.
Oh, yeah.
He'll go on and play Madden and break it down and explain to you like, hey, I love this play. This is what I do. I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. Cause I know if I motion this guy over, the defense will do this, 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 and that. And then I'll know, okay, it's going to be my third read. That's going to be the guy. And if I throw the ball when I go 1, 2, and I throw it, he'll be wide open at the end zone. And then it actually happens that way. And you're just like, wow, that is really cool.
Exactly. It's so crazy how stupid smart these people are.
Like growing up, nothing against my parents or anybody of that age group, but like when I was growing up, watching football was watching football.
Right.
Where now because the game has evolved so analytically and so methodically, but also analytically, that you can watch the game and break it down that way, and you can watch it just as a game. That's fine. But you can also watch it and understand what happens, why things are going a specific way, why they're doing what they do.
And the NFL knows that too. That's why they got all those AWS StatCast things going on too.
The thing that blows my mind, again, I'm going back to that podcast again, is that Sean McVay mentioned when he started running his offense in I think it was when he was in LA, how the NFL is a copycat league. He said, like, in my first year, I was doing this. By like the second, third year, literally every NFL team had this in their playbook.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about the Jets defense that I think is going to hurt the Jets, at least starting off, is that people know Shanahan, McVay, McDaniel, Robert Saleh, Vic Fangio. Those are all smart, very smart football minds. Like some of the smarter football minds, that whole core group of people. They watch their tape. They figure out what are they doing and how can we implement that into our defense, because that's what's working. Now, granted, they are not those guys, so it may not be as effective, but it will make them better. Which then, when the Jets come out and you're like, we know what they're doing. We we've studied you well enough to know that like you're going to do, I don't know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they can beat it. That's why, like I said, with the Jets, I'm not saying I'm not high on them, because I think with Aaron Rodgers, they should win 10 games. With that defense, with that defense alone, they should be able to win 7 or 8 games. With Aaron Rodgers, they should be able to get to 11, 12, maybe 13 wins. But again, you play to win the game. Every game's different. And it's with the Bills, the Bengals, and the Chiefs, again, we know how they deal with adversity. With the Jets, what's going to happen the first time they get punched in the mouth? We don't know.
I think that's where the veteran presence of Aaron Rodgers does come in on a just on a been there, done that kind of level. Historically, especially in recent history, the Jets have gone to the rookie quarterback, and the quarterback is the leader of the team. If you've got some kid who's wet behind the ears and just out of school, and you're asking him how to handle, this, that, and the other thing, when you've got veterans on the team that's like, man, this, whatever. I think Aaron Rodgers being there offers more than just the on-field things. I know the popular thing to say about Rodgers was, during his time in Green Bay, whether or not he may have said, it's not up to me to coach or bring up any backups that are behind me. And of course, now him going to the Jets and how he was with Jordan Love, like he was very private with that, and very supportive of Jordan Love, and Jordan Love's looking, at least to start, seems to be looking pretty good out there in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. I think that's where, though, if they get punched in the mouth, having someone like Aaron Rodgers say, guys, RELAX, remember that from a few years ago. Yeah. I think that makes all the difference there. Speaking of Green Bay, you saw last year when the Jets got punched in the mouth, and Zach Wilson, like, I don't at all.
Speaking like, you're not going to get that this year. He's also one of those smart McVay, Shanahan minds where you're like, holy crap, this guy really knows the game of football. Matt LaFleur. Oh yeah, absolutely, he does. He's also on that. You really should listen to that pod. I know I'm pumping the tires real hard, but you should listen. It will make your brain hurt. Send me the name of the pod. I don't remember. Sure thing. But send me the name of that. I'll listen to it. So John, looking ahead, who represents the AFC in Super Bowl 58 in the wonderful city of Las Vegas, Nevada?
Oof. That's kind of a tough one. I am going to, I know you say you don't think Kansas City is going to go back to back. I think Kansas City is going to go to the Super Bowl, but because I don't know that Kansas City would go back to back. I think they could make back to back appearances. I don't know that they'd win. I think at some point in time, like if the Chargers make, I was going to say if the Chargers, but then if I want to let you finish your thought, I'm sorry. No, I'm going to stick with KC in this one. I've not seen enough out of the Buffalo Bills to know whether or not they are indeed going to go past that hump. Something always seems to come up with them, Ryan. Absolutely. Something always seems to come up. And obviously last year, that was like an extreme, like nobody freaking wanted that to happen. No one wants it. It's like that scene from Major League when the head coach, the manager, has a heart attack. Yeah. He's like, it's always an arm thing or a leg thing or a psychological thing. It's with the Bills. It's always, you're waiting. We're not waiting for that shoe to drop because we know it's coming or because look at the past. But it's like until otherwise, like with Kansas City, you look at Kansas City and you're like, yeah, the Chargers could be better and could make their life a little more difficult, but they've done this before. Right.
Cincinnati,
Exactly.
the North could be tough, but they've done this before. So like that could allow a team like Buffalo to take advantage. Like for me, I put Buffalo down and was like, it sounds like a kind of a homer pick, which I get. It's not, in my opinion. But thinking on it, with Sean McDermott being the defensive coordinator, a lot more pressure on him, the team essentially coming back pissed off, if you will, a little more dimension on the offense, a lot more dimension on the defense, take a lot of pressure off of a lot more guys. As long as they can stay healthy, I mean, I'm hard pressed to find someone better than the Buffalo Bills, because I think the North is going to be more difficult. I don't know. Obviously, is Joe Burrow going to stay healthy? That completely changes everything there. I just don't think Kansas City goes back to back. They could go to the Super Bowl back to back. They've done that before. Obviously didn't win back to back, but at the end of the day, I mean, at some point in time, you figure it's got to catch up with Kansas City. As I say that, it's probably not going to be this year.
You never know.
In my prediction, I feel like that maybe is what happens, where they just run out of gas when it comes to the playoffs. Maybe the Bills get home field advantage and that finally makes the difference or something. I don't know, but that's my prediction for the AFC.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with KC on the AFC side, just because I see their path as being a little easier, I think, there than it would be for Cincinnati or for Buffalo. I don't see the New York Jets, as much as I want to see the New York Jets go and win a Super Bowl in my lifetime, and I am privately hoping for that, and very publicly hoping for it too. I don't see it happening year one. I know I hear everybody going, "Oh, Brady did it in Tampa year one," but that was Tom Brady. I mean, yes, Aaron Rodgers has records and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to have played the game, but Tom Brady's the GOAT. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing too. I completely forgot about this, and this is probably my fault, because again, my brain's a little still in off-season mode a little. The one big change that's come to the Chargers this season, that's going to be a big deal. Offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And that alone may be able to push the Chargers a little closer to Kansas City, which then may be able to take some wind out of their sails. But again, they are the Chiefs. They have who's going to end up being one of the greatest, arguably one of the greatest of all time in Patrick Mahomes, in that class at least. But again, worst case, if Brandon Staley doesn't make it, we're probably looking at interim head coach Kellen Moore anyway. So,
you never know.
From Boise State to the Chargers. Who would have thunk it?
I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right about that. I don't know. It's going to be. I think the winner of the Super Bowl will be the AFC. I think the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl. I've not seen, outside of Philly, really anybody from the NFC that jumps out at me as being elite.
Yeah, we'll talk about this on a later podcast, but I would agree with that thought process there.
Yeah.
Looking at our last thing here on the podcast before we wrap it up.
Sure. One
bold AFC prediction. John, do you want to go first, or would you like me to take the reins here and give you a minute?
Yeah, go first, will you?
My prediction here is that there will be a Bill Belichick to Bill O'Brien shift in New England. Josh McDaniels, always seen as the guy in New England, but O'Brien returning to save the day, save Mac Jones. I've got New England missing the playoffs, which would be the third time in 4 years. My thought being that Bill Belichick would retire at 71 instead of mutually parting ways. Let him leave with his dignity. Do I think he stays away from the National Football League? No. But I do think that, in my opinion, this is the year that the bold prediction comes true, that Bill Belichick walks away in New England.
That is a very bold prediction. I'm going to put the homer hat on for my bold prediction, though, and say that the New York Jets will finally have a 4,000-yard passer, and Aaron Rodgers will throw for 35 touchdowns.
That's very bold, but also
en route to his 4,000-yard season.
That's fair, though. That's bold but fair.
I say it's bold because the New York Jets have not had a 4,000-yard passer since Joe Willie Namath.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy, because the Jets haven't. It's not. all right, you take these past 10 years aside, right? These 10 years where they've just been horse shit, right? Before that, the Jets were consistently at least wild card. And they were doing that without a 4,000 yard passer. They were, so I think they're going to be much improved. I think the Jets are going to win the wild card. I don't have them winning the division like Sportsnaut says. I feel like the 12-5 of New York versus the 11-6 that Buffalo has. I think that should be flipped. Maybe even a 10-7. I think I see the Jets more 11-6, 10-7 than 12-5. 12-5 would be fantastic.
When I was a kid, man, with the Jets, nothing pissed me off more than Vinny Testaverde and Chad Pennington. But I'm looking at the stats here, man, and yeah, that's crazy to think.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. So that's my bold prediction: is Aaron Rodgers will throw for over 4,000 yards. The Jets will have their first 4,000 yard passing season since Joe Willie Namath. And he's going to be in the 30 to 35 touchdown bracket. That's fair. That's going to be my bold prediction there.
We'll have to fire that back up come February, and we'll see how true both of these were. But we do have the NFL season preview cast coming up. We have the NFC preview cast coming up as well. Myself, Mr. Perez will be talking NFC, and then myself, John, and Mr. Perez will get together to break down the big storylines across the NFL, complete with our season predictions and who will walk away the victor in Super Bowl 58. John, as always, I appreciate you joining the podcast. Again, you can find myself and John across most social media platforms. So, John, with that being said, as always, we are Better Live Than Dead.
You're not.
We will catch you sometime very soon. As always, thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate you.
Bye now. The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.